relax into a nice podcast.
Okay, that's good.
Hello and welcome to the Hackaday Podcast. I'm Elliot Williams.
And I'm Kristina Panos.
This is episode 343, Double Component Abuse, a Tinkercad Twofer, and a pair of Rants. This week in Hackaday News, badge reveal. We wrote up at least the hardware part of this year's SuperCon badge. The theme is Communicator, and that's because it's got a fantastic keyboard done by Arturo. It's got an awesome screen. It's got a LoRa radio on it, so the badges can all radio to each other across long distances and hopefully also across short distances, like in the alley. We're gonna see how that goes. There's a lot more detail about that to talk about, but we got a bunch of donations this year, which was awesome. We got free ESP32s, courtesy of Espressive. We got DigiKey, was just sprinkling random components all around. It was fantastic. I mean, like it's their day job. And even Seed Studio came in and gave us a little bit of a discount on the radio unit. Keyboard design was done by Arturo, who is probably doing the coolest hacker keyboards out there these days. Super chuffed that looks as good as it does and works as well as it does. I mean, who are we kidding? And right now we're panicking on the software, but we've got super good people working on it, and we've got our weekend planned already. We'll get it there. I'm just stoked that I'm not doing the heavy lifting on the software. Like, I'm really good at writing the last centimeter of software, the last little bit that makes the hardware work, but then software architecture apparently is the thing. And so Spaceban comes in with this entire like framework, suite, operating system, and all the rest of it that he's written in MicroPython for the badge before he's seen the badge, mind you. And, you know, we just started like brainstorming it, and he's like, here, look at this. And I'm like, what? I couldn't write that in my entire life. So it's lovely to work with other people on a giant project like this. Tom Nardi's been helping with the debugging. Well, it's been great. And then, of course, we handed off to 500 hackers and see what the heck they can do with it.
Yes.
That may even be the most exciting and interesting and fun part. Looking forward to it. 1 week till SuperCon, folks. If you haven't gotten your tickets, go get them. I don't know how many there are left. I think it's just a handful.
It says few. That's what it's... Few tickets left.
It was under 20 last week when I looked, and I haven't looked now. I mean, the truth is a lot of people who are going to go already have theirs. I don't know who's going to sign up in the last week, but if you're LA local, maybe you would. Maybe you should.
You definitely should.
That's a super fun time. And speaking of Hackaday news, there's also the component abuse challenge still going on. I'm going to highlight a hack from it coming right up because it's so cool just standing on its own. But if you are misusing components for purposes other than they're intended, you should write it up on Hackaday.io and enter it in the challenge. It runs until November 11th. So a week and a bit after SuperCon has cleared, you will have time to put your project together and get it out there. 11/11.
Make a wish.
Oh yeah, we put the badge GitHub repository up. Right now, again, it's only got the hardware stuff because the software is still a moving target. But if you are interested in what it looks like to make your own, heck, if you'd like a reference design for a lithium polymer battery charger, the one I stole, I think, from Adafruit and just slapped on this badge is on there for you. And it works. It's absolutely beautiful. It worked first time. Plugged it in, charges batteries. Can't beat that. So go check out the GitHub with the badge hardware on it. If you're coming to SuperCon, we'll put a badge into your hand just about a week from today. Oh yeah, and if you are coming to SuperCon, don't forget Friday night is a costume party, sci-fi themed. If you paid attention, the keynote speakers this year are all like prop designers and set designers and all the people who've worked behind the scenes in Star Trek. And if they show up to the costume party, like, I can't tell if I'm going to be stoked or mad if the dude who made Geordi LaForge's visor, like actually designed and made it, shows up in Star Trek costume to our costume party. Is that cheating?
No, I don't think so.
You think he earned it?
Yeah.
That's legit.
This is a journey into sound.
What's that sound?
What's that sound?
And that brings us to What's That Sound? This week, a brand new sound.
I don't see it. What's that sound?
Brand new sound. So new, in fact. Let's see that I forgot to load it up. There you go.
Okay, here we go. Here goes nothing. Whoa. What?
There you go. In 3-part.
Yeah, I have no idea. Oh wait, it's a mellotron. I don't know.
Yeah, good.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not, but good enough guess. Good enough guess.
Okay.
No, it's oh, I can't tell you what it is yet.
Oh,
Well, if you listeners out there have an idea what it is, head on over to hackaday.com/podcast. Scrolling down to What's That Sound, fill in your best guess, and next week we'll reveal what the sound was and pick among the correct answers to send out a Hackaday Podcast t-shirt. Oh, actually, this time you've got 2 weeks because next week is SuperCon. There's absolutely no way we will be able to put together a podcast in the middle of SuperCon. So that said, you've got 2 weeks on this one. Enjoy. Get your guesses in, but you won't hear who got it right for another 2 weeks. Yeah, then that brings us to the hacks. I'm starting off with the entry from the Component Abuse Challenge, boosting voltage with just a wire. This is a wild hack by Craig D. He makes a voltage doubler, tripler, I don't even know how many folder. It ends up, he starts off with like an 11 volt driver and ends up with 236 volts out of it. So it's a voltage multiplier made out of just a piece of coax. And that's even weirder. You might have thought out of a wire. Sure, he takes it, he rolls it up, he makes an inductor out of it. But no. He's taking a coax and a signal generator that he's made that can go both positive and negative. The way this works is he gives it a positive spike. That spike travels down the coax at roughly the speed of light. Because the other end isn't plugged into anything, it bounces off of it and comes back. Because his voltage source is very, very low impedance, it then flips sign. It's like it's like a string that's tied to the wall, right? The wave going down goes the other way. So he sends 1 volt down, it bounces off the open end, it comes back 1 volt, hits the voltage source again, flips over to -1 volt. And that's exactly when he toggles his voltage source down to -1 volt. So he's got -2 volts going down the end of this wire. It goes down the end, it bounces back off, it comes back, and then it flips over to +2 volts and he tips up again. And so he keeps repeating this at exactly the resonant frequency of this pulse, flipping up and down the bit of coax that he's got there. And every time just kind of giving it another push. You know, it's like somebody on a swing, right? If you just keep pushing them a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And that's the gimmick here. I am just absolutely flabbergasted. You should go read his Hackaday post. He starts off explaining how it works, you know, in the ideal case. But then in the real world, you know, no voltage source is perfect. Cables have loss, they have real impedance, et cetera, et cetera. And so he's calculating all this through. And he does it in a simulator, and he's like, I bet I can get plus or minus 80 volts out of this if I have a 1 ohm drive and put a 1K resistor on the end of it. And he does it, and he gets 72.5 volts measured on a multimeter. So hot damn. Congratulations. And it's got him driving a string of 2 of those old school neon light bulbs, which kind of drop 100 volts each. So absolutely no joke. He has got in excess of 200 volts out of this 11 volt source in the weirdest way I've ever seen. Really, really cool. And if you think the sound's difficult, well, it's kind of only conceptually so. In the end, tuning the circuit is just a matter of figuring out how long it takes for the pulse to go down the end of the coax and bounce back. And then once you have that frequency figured out, you just dial that in and let it go. So there's like no active circuitry here. It's just a matter of kind of tuning your voltage source, swinging high and low to just exactly match the pulse going back and forth in this coax, like, timing your push on a swing, and boom, it works. In theory, with lossless circuit, the voltage could increase to infinity, as he says, or until something breaks. Nothing ever breaks in theory, but...
Well, in theory, my next hack will break.
Uh-oh.
I chose another component abuse challenge entry. Conductive filament makes a meltable fuse. Like Donald wrote, everything is a fuse if you run enough current through it. But this time, the material in question is conductive PLA filament. Now, theoretically, conductive PLA should work the same as a regular fuse. Abuse it with excessive current and it self-destructs, breaking the electrical connection and thus earning its paycheck. As Donald points out, there's a non-zero chance of melted plastic and the possibility of combustion, but that's just part of the journey. JohnsonFarms.US's experiments thus far have shown that these PLA fuses are basically meltable resistors with values between 300 and 1250 ohms, depending on the shape. And if you squint, it kind of looks like a fuse, I think.
Yeah.
Finding out what it takes to soften and then melt these multiple resistors is the next step on this journey. It's a cool trip, and it makes you wonder what else multiple resistors could lead to. Although it's, you should have a fire extinguisher nearby, probably.
And it's probably going to smell gross.
Yeah.
So they have like fast blow and slow blow fuses, right? Made out of more and less robust materials. This, I can't imagine how, it's goopy and melty. What category is that in?
Saggy? I don't know.
Hope it doesn't catch on fire.
Yeah.
That's why they put them in those little glass tubes.
Yeah.
So the stuff doesn't get on you.
You don't want that on you.
Well, next up for me is an awesome video journey by Eric from Concept Crafted Creations. POV globe takes to the skies. We've seen those persistence of vision globe designs where you basically take a hoop, either a half hoop or a full hoop of RGB LEDs, you spin it fast enough that it all makes a blur, and then you project pictures on it. And Eric's brilliant idea here was to take this hoop, put it on a pole, and attach a quadcopter to that pole, right? Like it looks like it's a solid ball, but because it's really just spinning around really fast, the 4 blades of the quadcopter that are inside the ball are A, invisible, and B, able to levitate the thing. And it sounds really great on paper. Those of you who have any experience with flying things know that when you try to spin one thing, the vehicle likes to spin the other way. He levitates this thing up in the air, and then he starts the POV hoop spinning, and it's got so much weight, wind resistance, and momentum that it spins the quad completely out of control. And I guess he first tried this back in 2017, and every time he built it, it crashed, and he gave up. But he pulls it back out and has a look, and this time he's going to science it. And so he puts the thing on a rig on his desk that he's made with a little load cell, spins it up, and discovers that the wind resistance that this thing makes when it's spinning actually exerts a force of 2,400 grams. That's like 5 pounds. So yeah, that's why the thing twists out of control every time you turn it on. That's easy. So he's like, all I need to do is figure out a way to counter this force. And if you look at like a helicopter, which has this one big blade and would spin around like crazy under it if it didn't have the back rotor, he's like, oh, I'll just put 2 more quadcopter motors in there. So I'll have them blow against the direction that it wants to turn, and we'll do that. And then he calculates out how much 2,400 grams is, and that is trouble. He ends up solving it by putting just these absolutely gigantic props on the inside of this thing fighting its spin, and it actually works. But now the thing's so heavy that he needs more motors to lift it. So it's not a quadcopter anymore. He has to tack on 4 more lifting motors, plus the 2 motors to oppose the spin, and then another motor with a gear to spin the whole ball thing around. He gets 10, 20, 30 seconds of video out of it at the end, and he tries to land it. It crashes, and the thing's broken at this point. But these 10 or 20 seconds of video are so awesome. It totally makes me understand why he did this project. You could do all of the things you can project on a globe. Well, like a globe, but like an eyeball or a Halloween pumpkin, a flying jack-o'-lantern, with no visible anything else is pretty awesome. So kudos to the project. Bummer that it crashed, and I can't imagine who has written the right flight control software for this. Quad software is pretty well established at this point in time, and figuring out how to change the motor speeds so that it tilts, yaws, and pitches correctly is well known. But this is adding a strange degree of freedom to it. It must be something like a helicopter, but also much stronger. I don't know. Really cool project though. Adventurous. Brave.
For my next hack, I chose Full Stack Woodworking's Classy Desk simulates beehive activity. And in what looks like the most complicated woodworking build ever, Full Stack Woodworking has created a desk that's truly like none other. Take a look at it. We'll wait. Okay then. As you'll see in the no time wasted build video, the most time consuming part was making all those hexagons. And all those hexagons is no exaggeration, because they're all stacks of laser cuts, see, and there's a whole lot more to it than I'm probably getting across here, so just go ahead and watch the video, because it's worth it. And like I said, no time is wasted. It's kind of difficult to watch on 2x speed, as I tend to do, but I managed it with the captions on. And after all, this is finally complete. The actual desk and the electronics still have to be built. And what is a beehive-looking desk without beehive activity? Not much. But good thing there's a Raspberry Pi 5 running a beehive simulation wherein a set of algorithmic rules set the status and color of each hex cell, which is based on the behavior of virtual bees storing honey in the cells. As Lewin says in the write-up, it resembles Conway's Game of Life in probably the best way possible. Did you see this? It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now. It is.
Okay.
It is crazy. I was gonna say that's the beauty of having like a laser cutter or a CNC machine. If you have to drill 1,000 holes yourself, you're really sad. But if you can put something in a machine and the machine drills 1,000 holes, you can be sipping coffee while it happens, right? So that's what I thought at first. But like you said, these aren't machined out. These are laser cut in a bunch of different levels and then glued together. And there's a whole bunch of post-processing going on here.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Hardcore woodworking project.
It's quite the 30-minute ride.
Is it 30 minutes? Yeah, I just clicked through. Damn. Well, it must have taken him 6 months or something.
Yeah.
I mean, 30 minutes is nothing. Well, my next hack, it's not a hack. I wanted to cover Lewin's article, What Happened to Running What You Wanted on Your Own Machine? Because this is a bit of a rant, but it's a rant after my own heart. Well, I guess it was kicked off by Android new announcement that they will only allow you to flash signed binaries, and those by people who have registered with the Google/Play Store/whatever. And so only software by registered developers will be allowed to be installed on your cell phone, which of course is just a little computer in your pocket. And Lewin's question is, who the heck are you to tell me what I can install on my little computer? But he's like, they're not the only ones. iPhones are like that. And he's like, you know what? This all started way earlier. And he goes digging. And he puts the beginnings of lockdown software like this at the foot of the early video game consoles. So like Nintendo, for instance, had an encryption chip on their cartridges so that you could only play genuine Nintendo games in a Nintendo machine. There was no second source cartridge market because they hadn't cracked Nintendo's encryption scheme at the time to make it so you could do that. And, PlayStation came after that. And the point he makes here is that this was probably the thin end of the wedge, because video games and home console systems and all that were brand new back then, and they weren't computers. And so, you didn't kind of have this expectation of being able to load whatever software on it like you would with your Commodore 64 or your TRS-80 color computer or something of the same time. But that's weird, because there were a bunch of, like, Atari had a bunch of computers at the time, and they were like real computers. You could load whatever you want on it. And Nintendo even tried to make the NES into a real computer. They had some extra peripherals on it, which was, I think, their response to the video game crash. Anyway, long history there, and very interesting and very weird. And phones are like that too. When smartphones came out, they were also not computers. So maybe it was okay that we weren't able to put whatever we wanted on them, Apple. But he ends with Windows watches and waits. And Microsoft has apparently, and I didn't even know this, tried to put out entirely signed software operating systems twice now. And they've completely failed. Like, nobody bought them. So, yay for us. But how long is this going to go on? Are they going to be able to develop a software ecosystem that's appealing enough that they would fool people into this? I mean, lure people into this trap. But I'm pretty opinionated about this one. It's not so far-fetched because they're kind of halfway there. If you've ever tried to install software, Windows systems put up more and more scare windows that are like, this is untrusted software. Are you sure you want to install it? And then you click it and they're like, are you really sure? This software could be written by bad people. And then you click it and they're like, it's not approved by Windows Media Defender or, whatever, blah, blah. I don't even remember the name. I think he's right, and I think it's kind of a bummer. And I think for a while, Android being the open phone operating system was like the beacon in the other direction here. And it's a real sadness to see Google caving in and kind of locking your computer down against you. Bah, over my dead body.
I'm leaving. I'm quitting Windows.
Are you?
I am.
Why is that?
Because support ended for 10.
Yeah.
Like 5 days ago, and I need a new OS, so I'm gonna switch to Ubuntu. We're gonna try Ubuntu.
Windows 11 is probably the best thing that's ever happened to Linux on the desktop. They're getting a whole bunch of refugees, and they have to go somewhere. We actually wrote an article fairly recently surveying the kind of broad scope of immutable Linux distributions, which because you don't have to configure them much, and because they are super easy to update and all that, are actually probably easier to administer than a Windows system is. So I'll throw that link in for you people. Immutable Linux is probably going to be the right answer if you're a Windows refugee.
Well, for my next hack, I chose Raman Shaber's handheld PC build is pleasantly chunky. I sure do love a cyberdeck or any portable computer, really. And the chunkier the better, I say. Good thing that we featured Raman Shaber's build, called the Mutant C. But that's not even the best part. It has a sliding keyboard, which kind of gets buried in the story, if you ask me. Or rather, the screen slides up to reveal the keyboard. It's the same difference. Anyway, this baby is based on the Raspberry Compute Module 4. Now, we don't get a whole lot of compute module-based hacks, so you might not know exactly what this flavor of Raspberry does. As Lewin puts it, it's a Pi that's designed specifically for easy integration into a larger carrier PCB. And in the case of the Mutant C, as you'll see in the video, the carrier PCB interfaces all the other parts that make this a full-fledged computer for on the go. And in case you missed it like I did, there's a Hall effect joystick there and a few buttons for mouse control. I would say the second best part about this build is that it's built for two types of battery packs. You can run it off either 18650s or the larger 21700 cells. And like I said, you should watch the assembly video because it's worth it. It's nice to see what all goes into it.
That thing looks pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, that board he makes that the Raspberry Pi module goes into is kind of like, it's like the motherboard of a computer, only it's so small that it fits in your hand, right? And it connects all the things together. Plug in the compute module and you're off to the races. My first quick hack, open source hack, lets the Razer Nari headset work with Linux. It's an audio headset that connects to a dongle that you can plug into your computer. So instead of using Bluetooth, it uses whatever this probably 2.4 gigahertz proprietary format is. Problem is that across the different Razer headphone designs, none of the dongles work with the other headphones, even though they could. And to pair them, you need a Windows application. So if you're running Linux, you are out of luck. A product that was kind of arbitrarily and mean-spiritedly, as far as I'm concerned, locked down, work with his computer. And as commenter Gusta says, I love sweet hacks like this, well written and actually not so hard, inspiring stuff. I think that's what's really cool about this write-up too, is that it does take you through all the steps and make this sort of hacking seem at least approachable. I think it's always easier when you're looking over someone else's shoulder, and it's harder when you're out there blazing that trail on your own. But still, I appreciate the sentiment, and I think if this encourages more people to poke at these things, the more of us do this, the better off our world is. Next up, Mirsa MK. I gotta figure this guy's name out sometimes. He does so many hacks here.
Yeah.
Making a clock with a retooled Unihiker K10. An AI on the edge little board. It's got a screen, it's got a camera, it's got a microphone, it's got a fairly beefy ESP32. It looks like it's a fun little device to hack around with, but unfortunately it doesn't yet support any of the open software platforms you'd like to work with it. And so that's what he's doing here. He's porting Arduino to this board so that you can reflash it, make it do what you want, including using all of its various peripherals. Chuck Hellebook and HL ModTech both came in with Tinkercad videos this week, and I think it's a neat Tinkercad Twofer. Tinkercad is a CAD software that you can use in the browser. It's often used as an introduction to kids to get into 3D modeling. But over time, they've been adding more and more sophisticated features to it. And I mean, Al Williams is always pushing it as being, it's starting to come into its own. And I think that's really cool because it's like the gateway drug into CAD modeling. And like all kids love to 3D print stuff. If you can just motivate them to do some of their own designs by giving them a nice, easy to use tool, et cetera, et cetera. It's cool to see it including, as Chuck's video demonstrates, a way to make multicolor prints using it. So get the 3 or 4 different sub prints you need to assemble a multicolor print together. Or as HL ModTech demonstrates, it's got a new rotation feature. So instead of just doing make a shape and extrude it, you can also do make a shape and rotate it around a point. Kind of sketch revolve way of building things leads to much more organic looking things. Like vases are the obvious thing, but then all sorts of other shapes with curves in them can be created this way. So it's pushing, quote, a kid's toy into the direction of being a real CAD modeler.
Well, for my first quick hack, I chose Hulk's building a Minecraft lantern for Halloween. Hulk built a sweet Minecraft lantern just in time for Halloween, and if you hurry, you can build one too. Of course it works, and it has color mixing pots right on the side there to dial up any shade you wish, not just, orange yellow. Since it's a Minecraft build, the print is pretty easy to deal with and is done in 6 parts. Acrylic lenses diffuse the light that emanates from inside. Also inside is an Arduino Nano, which is connected to a pair of addressable NeoPixel rings, one at the top and one at the bottom. It's powered by an 18650, and there's a TP4056 to keep the battery happy while it's charging. Next up is VG Miller. Let's call it VGMLR. VG Miller, I don't know. Kitchen bench splash guard powered by Arduino. As much as I love that shower mode is now built directly into the kitchen faucet and is no longer on a separate sprayer, it does kind of splash water everywhere if I'm not careful. So maybe I should consider this elegant build from VG Miller that raises a pair of splash guards whenever the sink is running. How does this work? How? There's a piezo element that acts as a water sensor through the magic of microphonics. This piezo is hooked up to an Arduino pin. When water is flowing, the Arduino makes 2 servos raise a pair of 3D printed arms that run up and down the outsides of the sink. These arms each have a magnet that mates with magnets on the splash shields and makes the shields raise up and down. I love how clean and seamless this design is, and it would be simple to clean both the sink and the splash guards anytime you needed to. Finally, we have a very fresh article from the 2025 Component Abuse Challenge, Nail Your Next Decal. So maybe this isn't exactly abuse of a nail art kit, but Tomas is sure operating outside the kit's comfort zone here. Through the magic of tiny stenciling and stamping, Tomas has created quite detailed decals down to 0.1 millimeters in cheap and repeatable fashion. Sound exciting? It is. And you can see it happening in the very short process video. Basically, Tomas resin printed a stencil, pushes some nail polish into the voids, then he uses a thing that resembles a loop to pick up a layer of nail polish, and then transfers the nail polish to the thing to be decaled. Tomas says you have to work fast because the nail polish dries in seconds, and that you need to clean the stamper immediately if you ever want to use it again. Now, there's actually, in the video that's very short but very well worth it, he actually has time to show it, so it's not like you have to do it immediately. You have a second or two before it dries. But I thought that was really cool. As long as you have a resin printer, I guess.
Well, that brings us to our Can't Miss articles. These are long-form pieces written by our fantastic Hackaday writing staff. And this week I wanted to pick Maya Pasha's polemic, Built-in Batteries, a Daft Idea with an Uncertain Future. This is actually a two-parter. On one part, it's a polemic against batteries that you can't remove and everything you have to kind of plug a USB micro or USB-C cable in to charge it again. And at first blush, I was like, what? She's crazy. It's awesome that everything has a LiPo in it and I can just charge it up like that. But her point, and I think she's absolutely right, is that a lot of professional gear has batteries that are easily replaceable because if you're shooting a movie, you don't have the downtime to take your professional cinema camera, plug it into a USB-C cable, or put a power bank on it and wait for it to get going again. If you are in a professional situation, you get enough batteries charged to get you through the day. When one goes dead, you pop it out, you put the next one in. And if you're feeling fancy, you take that one and you put it on a charger so it's ready to go again. And, this way, if you have enough of them, you could be going the whole time. And this is the way a lot of pro gear works. And it makes sense, of course, from the continuous use perspective, but it also makes sense if you're spending thousands of dollars for a piece of gear, you don't want its lifetime to be limited by a non-replaceable battery inside it. Looking at you, cell phone manufacturers. So both from kind of the pro user standpoint as well as the device longevity standpoint, built-in non-removable batteries are bad news. I'm totally sold on her idea that, small electronics should have batteries. You can just buy 3 of them, slam them in. It's cheaper, it's lighter, it's smaller than carrying around a power bank. I'm totally sold. The only question is, what should we do for the format? And here she's got Nikon professional gear and Sony professional gear and Red professional gear. And of course, they all have their own proprietary battery formats. So, boo. And in fact, even cell phones with replaceable batteries, none of them match each other. So, boo. And she does bring up the fact that some in our community have kind of standardized around the old Nokia battery, the BL5C. And if you buy some types of particularly cheap gear, they'll be able to take these. I have a vector network analyzer that takes a BL5C as its battery. I think that's really cool. Anyway, all of this opinion piece stuff is fantastic, but then she comes down to the nitty-gritty here, which is that the EU has passed a battery regulation that in February of 2027 will start to enforce removability and replaceability requirements for portable batteries. And portable batteries are anything under 5 kilograms and isn't an electric vehicle. So this is going to be all of the built-in batteries you can think of. And this is going to be a weird and interesting change. And she suggests that manufacturers are going to have to really hop up and get to work, start migrating even as early as 2026. And for those of you playing along at home, that's in a couple months. We're almost there. And so the idea that a rechargeable mouse or a cell phone will have a replaceable lithium-ion battery pack sounds futuristic, but is soon going to be law in Europe. And I think that's very interesting. And I fear what we'll see out of this is the same thing that happened with cell phones, which is that everybody's going to design their own unique battery pack and they're going to try to use it. On the other hand, if everybody has to do this, there's going to eventually be some kind of economy of scale in making standardized lithium polymer flat small battery packs like with the Nokia BL5C was. And I think that would be the best of all possible worlds. And I don't know if we're heading there. I can't say we are, but if one particularly popular device is like a runaway success and uses this one battery type, even if it's proprietary, people will come along and they'll clone it, and it could become, kind of a de facto standard. So that might be really cool. Like replaceable batteries that are small, flat form factor, so they're better than any of those cylindrical cells. They've got a lot of power density because they're made out of lithium, but they're not trapped in the device forever so that you have to throw the device away when the batteries go bad. That's the dream. And it's like right around the corner. I don't know how this is news to me. I live in Germany. I should read the news more, I guess. This is really cool. So kudos to Maya for writing this one up and taking it A, beyond the rant, but B, by making such a coherent rant that I'm like, oh yeah, she's totally right. Coherent rant. I don't think it's an oxymoron. It's not meant to be an oxymoron.
For my can't miss, I chose Al Williams's word processing heavy metal style. Like a lot of things, printing a book has never been easier, provided you have access to the right equipment. If you want something that resembles a book you'd find in Barnes & Noble, for instance, you're going to have to type it up, submit it to a publisher, and they're going to use, as Al says, a laser beam or something to put the words into book form. But for a long time, printing was far more of an analog endeavor. What I mean is, the thing you printed with looked exactly like what it imprinted, albeit mirrored. This process of carving an image or message out of wood or something similar is quite old, but the revolution came when the Chinese and later the Europeans came to the conclusion that movable type would be far more flexible. Now, if you're aware of Gutenberg.org but don't know who Gutenberg was, you're in for a history lesson. But Al's not here to discuss Gutenberg or the impact that the movably typed word had on society. He points out the problem that books are absolutely huge once you start to think about assembling them one letter at a time to be printed. So he gets into the automation of it all. Well, the next revolution came in the 1800s when someone wanted a faster method of publishing legal briefs, and they asked a clockmaker named Ottmar Mergenthaler to create such a machine. He dreamed up a machine that's pretty crazy. It would assemble molds for type rather than the actual type itself. Then the machine would cast molten metal, making a line of type ready for a printing press. Be sure to take 6 minutes and watch the video Al embedded about the last linotype using a newspaper in the States. Now, Al goes on to mention imitators of the, linotype machine, such as the typograph. I always want to say linotype, but obviously it's linotype because it produces a line of type. As Marge Simpson says, I've only seen it written, such as the typograph and the intertype machines. But much like the Xerox became a victim of genericide, machines that did this magic were almost always called linotype machines. At this point, it's time to describe the workings of the machine, which all agree does definitely look both steampunk and modern all at once. Now, I won't labor through the explanation here, but I will mention that unlike type, a linotype matrix of type isn't a mirror image. Furthermore, it's set into the metal instead of rising above it. After all, it's a mold that will make the eventual type that will be raised and mirrored. Once the linotype was ready, the mold moved to the casting section where a gas burner or possibly an electric heater kept a mixture of lead, antimony, and tin in a molten state. I don't know if I said antimony correctly, but I'm going to go with it. A well-made linotype slug was good for a shocking 300,000 imprints, but if you didn't need it anymore, it just went back into the pot for reuse. One super interesting aspect of this whole process is the way that type was justified. There are these space bands that were much longer than the magazines of type. The further that they were pushed into the block of magazines, the bigger the space they produced. A mechanism in the machine pushed them up until the line of type fit exactly between the margins. Now, after an apt comparison to Rube Goldberg, Al wraps up by saying that movable type was to printing what 3D printing is to plastic manufacturing. That makes me think of 3D printed type balls for the IBM Selectric, which I have linked to below. And you should definitely check out. If you have a resin printer.
Does it take a resin printer?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Or Shapeways or somebody.
I've never seen a linotype machine. Linotype, antimony. I've never seen one up close before in my entire life. And the idea of a machine whereby, you set the type and then it pours the lead over it is, it's a little intimidating. I won't lie.
Yeah.
But I love the reusability of the type. Like,
Right?
picked up on that, and the way Al said it was just hilarious. You know, you just pick them up and you chuck them back in the pot.
Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold.
Anyway, it's a cool piece of tech that I've absolutely never seen. I've seen some people who do for, you know, artisanal hobby fun purposes, the like regular printer, movable type print, but never one of these where you get to cast it in lead.
I went to the Hamilton Wood Type Museum up in Wisconsin. That was pretty cool.
What do they do there?
They don't have any linotypes, but they make wood type, and they have since the 18 somethings. If you ever see a printer's drawer like holding miniatures or something, look on the handle and it probably says Hamilton on it.
Oh, right.
If you're in the States,
So
at least.
The old Chinese movable type machines or whatever rigs are like that too. They're just carved squares of wood with the characters on them. It's really funny for the Chinese perspective. That's really not such a weird stretch, because since antiquity, they've been doing those seals, right? They have those square seals that represent you or your kingdom or whatever. And
The chops.
yeah, the chops, right? And so you want to write a sentence. What is it? It's just take 4 chops and line them up and go bonk, right? It practically invents itself at that point. And so it's kind of, in some ways, no surprise that they would come up with a movable type system first.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, let's carve this out of wood instead of stone, because it's a lot easier. If you have to say a lot of things, carving your chops out of stone is pretty dumb. Inconvenient, not dumb. It's actually a cool art, but it's super inconvenient. That does it for this week's Hackaday Podcast. Thanks very much for listening. If you see anything cool, send us a tip, tips@hackaday.com. And to follow along with the links in the show notes, head on over to hackaday.com/podcast. Again, we're at SuperCon next week, so we will have probably a placeholder show there for you. Maybe we'll scrap together a best of or something.
A clip show. Nice.
But until the week after next,
Keep on hacking
abject terror.
if you want.
Lovely low latency. This is too much material that isn't going on the air.
Okay. Deal. Gesundheit.
Facing potential bankruptcy. Yawn.
Call me when you file Chapter 13. Tinkercad Twofer.